Happy Thanksgiving Eve and welcome to your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. I am Jer Stays, and it is Wednesday, November 22nd, 2023. Woodward is closed from Grand Boulevard to downtown Detroit, and that can mean only one thing, Norris Howard. It is almost parade time. Do you got any parade memories? You got it, man.
Oh, yes, absolutely, man. You know, all the way back in the 90s when Chilly Willy flew away.
Oh, my gosh. I remember that, too.
Yeah, man. It's a ton of those. But, I definitely remember waking up every morning and being very excited only for my mom to tell me, hell no, we ain't going downtown.
My dad was the same way. He's like, the bus isn't going to get in there.
Yeah, so, I've been a few times as a kid, and actually I've been more to the parade as an adult. So I have plenty of memories as an adult, and actually used to live downtown. So I used to watch most of the parade from my balcony, actually.
I spent, more than 10 years, whether it was for other companies in a former life, kind of working the parade. Because when you worked in corporate communications,
that's what you did. Yeah, that was a big meeting.
Yeah, that was like where everybody wanted to be. You rented out the Whitney or something like that. And I mean, I didn't have that kind of money. I was just the foot soldier there, but made sure it happened. But yeah, the parade is such a special thing, and I think it brings so many people together because it not only is it something where it's the biggest parade of the region. Not only do you have the parade company, but that national coverage matters too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think it's just fun. I think it's a fun, cool, innocent thing. It's one of those events where if somebody's like, "Oh man, I hate the parade," you just suck as a person. You're just not a very fun individual.
Just sit in the corner and eat some stuff.
Yeah, just go away. Like let the children and those of us who like this kind of stuff just chill and enjoy something nice and wonderful that the city is known for.
Before we get into it, and we're going to talk some listener feedback. I think that was a good thing. I know you enjoy the listener feedback.
I do. Positive or negative is very fun.
But I do want to talk about Small Business Saturday because it's this weekend. It like snuck up on me. But I wanted to pass along something special from some friends of the show. As you know, we talk about Midtown quite a bit. Businesses there.
Absolutely.
Castalia, a fine sponsor. We've got another sponsor onboarding next month. But there are 25 businesses in Midtown doing this Midtown Bingo thing, and that's going to start on Small Business Saturday. City Bird Detroit's doing this thing. You can pick up a card at any one of these 25 businesses. You get a stamp, and then if you get 5 in a row, you get like a random drawing for something between $10 and $50.
That's
free.
Pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I've done Midtown Bingo myself. I never won anything, but it's just fun, man. It's going to be an exciting time, especially the folks who've moved away from the city, who are coming back to hang out with family and stuff. Slide on down to Midtown and check out all the business down there and find some cool last-minute gifts.
For sure. And this is running all the way through the holiday season, so it's not just for Saturday. You can pick this up, go in there, take a look at all the different things. I mean, Source booksellers, we all love Source. Cafe Souterre just open. There's just so many things. Although there's definitely like a few coffee shops in here. I might be very wired.
Well, a lot of the coffee shops also sell liquor. So if you're looking to get away from the family, this may be your excuse. No, sweetie, it's Small Business Saturday. I'm going Christmas shopping, and then just do your thing and have a few cocktails with the lads.
Well, let's get into the bulk of the show, and let's talk solar. There was a lot of feedback, Norris, from the last time we talked about this. Most of it, frankly, outstate, and most of it negative from outstate folks. But I'm going to share some of these bits because I think it's interesting. Benjamin said, y'all talked a lot about putting clean energy in empty space in Michigan, but you pushed pretty hard that the empty spaces was rural, which won't win any rural friends. Detroit has a ton of genuinely empty space that is actually empty most of the time. They're called parking lots. You don't have to look far to find examples, and he sent me a bunch of links. Some others agree with Ben. Lots or others said, why should city people say rural areas should have solar when the city doesn't?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
And we're going to have more. We're going to talk about this in a second.
Okay.
Another take was Tom, who, by the way, thank you for the positive comments about the show. Thank you so much for listening. And since it was a long note, I'm going to try to shorten it the best I can. He moved to Detroit after 2 decades in New Hampshire. I just listened to yesterday's episode and wanted to offer some feedback on the energy discussion. Most of it was about green energy, but in my view, the underlying issue is really one of local control. How much decision-making authority do citizens want to see to Lansing? It's easy for people of the left to support giving up local control for something like green energy, but anyone with even a casual knowledge of this issue knows that it's a classic NIMBY situation. I watched Vermont liberals fight over the issue of windmills for years. They're great as long as they're somewhere else, don't ruin the views or kill the birds, or in the case of solar, create an environmental desert. It's easy for someone in Detroit to say yes to a proposal impacting mid-state and mostly conservative areas. I wonder very much if the headline was about a new nuclear facility in the metro area or some such. Separately, does anyone really enjoy driving through Ontario on the 401 through a windmill farm, or having a windmill farm ruin a beautiful mountain landscape in New England? It's a high price to pay for what ends up being a very high-cost energy, which he says impacts lower-income people most of all. There was no discussion of this angle to the debate, which I found odd.
All right. Now, first of all, that last comment, fair take. I love that comment, by the way. Number one, I actually do love driving up the Kings Highway and seeing the wind farms. I actually find it to be very pleasant. But there are solar farms in the city of Detroit. I've mentioned one on this show that is on 96 in Greenfield in a former park that nobody used because a giant ass highway runs through the neighborhood. But there's a solar farm right there servicing that area. And guess what? Nobody cares. It's providing clean electricity for the people in that area and across Metro Detroit. And so there are solar farms in the city. The city is now also saying that they're looking for plans to expand the solar farms within the city as well.
I've got a story about that. I want to comment about a few other things. Me personally, I'm not anti-nuclear. I know that's like a weird thing, but we've come a long way in nuclear technology. A lot of stuff in Europe is funded that, or is fueled that way. Europe uses a lot of nuclear power. I think it's dumb that we wrap up our identities in what way we get our power. I don't mean that as a personal insult, but like I think in general, a lot of the feedback that I got, that I wanted to share the most constructive, but a lot of the feedback I got was basically that I'm a communist, because like, you know, it's something where our identity is wrapped up in this. And I even see it on the highways, or you drive anywhere, you know, in a lot of suburbs where it's like, you know, they see the guy with the black smoke off his truck and stuff like it. Just
here's the thing though, and I agree with that assertion, is that, you know, why is identity tied up in something like natural resources, right? Because we are not like a major coal exporter in Michigan, right? Like our industry is not super tied up with that. So I'm not necessarily sure that Michigan should be that concerned, but we do have a lot of lakes. We do get some sun throughout most of the year. We do have a lot of other natural resources that, yes, we should probably use and try to figure out the best way to clean our energy. And at the end of the day, you know, the commenter saying that why should rural people, you know, give up their land and cede their land to Lansing and all this other stuff. But when you try to apply the inverse, it doesn't apply, especially in the city of Detroit, because the city of Detroit is doing this. And overwhelmingly, people in Detroit support clean energy and support clean energy initiatives. So the assertion that it's not being done here is, number one, false. And number two, also the assertion that clean energy does not benefit low-income people is also false, because if you look at, I don't know, Southwest Detroit and Del Rey,
these plants pollute, and they pollute in generally low-income areas.
Exactly. So if we're talking about, we can't separate climate change and industrialization and how it impacts low-income people. So you can't come in and cape for the poor man when it comes to this stuff either. So for me, that sort of example you're giving about New Hampshire and all the rest of that stuff does not apply here in Southeast Michigan. And if we're going to talk about rural people, if people sat back and actually listened to what I said this is a way for aging farmers and people who are not using their land, people who can no longer work their land because their kids are gone, or they can't afford maintenance on the equipment, or they can't hire workers to come work on the farm. This is a way for them to monetize their land and keep their land profitable. Why does anybody have an issue with that? Please explain that to me.
Well, I wanted to bring you this update too, Norris, and get your thoughts, as the administration last week revealed 9 finalists for 250 acres of solar arrays in the neighborhoods of Detroit on mostly vacant land. The plan aims to generate enough clean energy to offset the electricity used by 127 city buildings across these 250 acres. So that's how they'll figure it out. Once finalized, the city says these solar arrays will provide community benefits. Host neighborhoods will receive $25,000 per per acre, and residents within the designated areas will have the opportunity to receive between 10 grand and 25 grand in benefits that can be used for energy efficiency upgrades, new windows, new roofs, all that stuff, because a bunch of these houses need these upgrades. You've driven through these neighborhoods. The city of Detroit plans to announce the 6 winning sites in the first quarter of next year. Final approval rests with Detroit City Council, and the process will include compensation for both homeowners and renters. I'll link to the maps in the show notes, and you've got some of the maps in front of you, Norris, because you know these neighborhoods pretty well. I will say personally, as an editorial looking at these maps, most of these areas don't have very many homes in them. It'll be 1 or 2 or 3 per block. So, and often next to an area that's a little bit more like inhabited that will get those benefits. And I think this is going to be a really interesting project.
Yeah, it's one of the things that, like, tell me you don't drive through the city without telling me you don't drive through the city. Like, you know, obviously everybody is using the concept of, oh, Detroit has all this vacant land. Well, guess what? The vacant land is not parking lots. The vacant land is vacant land.
The vacant land downtown is parking lots.
Yeah.
So this gets to my thing that okay. We have got to shift this Detroit conversation from just being about what the Ilitches own. Look,
Yep.
I know that, like, there are issues. I'm not going to say that they're not.
Mhm.
But if it's not around the stadiums, the rest of this region and state don't care.
Mm-hmm.
They just do not care. They don't respond. They don't know. And it really annoys me that the entire view of the city of Detroit, and it's only because you go to the sports, you go to Eastern Market, but those are like the only 5 neighborhoods that anyone outside the city of Detroit knows, unless you're like in an inner suburb or whatever. There is so much more to Detroit than that. And yes, there are empty parking lots there, but it's actually, compared to what we're talking about in general, not
Pales
that.
in comparison.
And we need to stop holding up the Detroit development conversation, being like, well, we can't do it because the Ilitches own land. There's a lot of land in other places. There is stuff, literally, we're recording this show near a spot where there's going to be like 1,000 apartments down the street.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'll be honest, it does. I look at the numbers. It doesn't get the pop. The thing that gets the pop is, are the Ilitches involved? And
Yep.
we have to have a conversation that there's so much more to Detroit than that.
Exactly. And,
Sorry, I'm hot in the collar.
No. I feel you, and that's the thing that irritates me about this conversation, because looking at these neighborhoods, you're talking about 96 in Plymouth, which I already mentioned, but we're also talking about State Fair. You're talking about Van Dyke and Lynch. You're talking about 75 and 6 Mile. So these are areas that have been historically sort of vacated. You know, there's a lot of land. There's a lot of vacant homes in these areas. Okay, we put the solar farms there. We talked about the community benefits package, which, listen, is it, you know, a ton of money? No, it's not a ton, but it's more than you would get if nothing else was there.
And we shouldn't put solar panels on those parking lots. We should put buildings.
Yes. 1,000%. So
and then a solar panel on top, whatever you want to do, but like build with density and then utilize your land smartly.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to, you know, all the sort of counterpoints about solar panels in Michigan and in the city of Detroit in particular, all of those comments are null and void.
Wow. Okay, so you're not taking anything.
No, they're null. They're null.
I
and
do
void.
understand the visual part, especially if you're from the area. Like, it's a change. People don't like change.
I don't care. I don't care. Like, here's the thing. Are we talking about solar panels, or are we talking about, you know, 65-foot, 150-foot wind turbines? We're not talking about wind turbines. We're talking about solar panels. So ultimately, unless you're talking about building them right next to heavily populated, dense areas, I don't care about the visuals. I would much rather see the visual of a solar farm than a visual of an empty lot being reclaimed by nature that nobody's using, that, you know, is not being utilized to the benefit of the citizens in Detroit, right? That's what I care about. I care about the people who've chosen to stay here, or who have no choice but to stay here, being able to reap the benefits of the land that's been abandoned by people who just refuse to develop anywhere else besides downtown. So all that mess I'm hearing about, but it's gonna look, I don't care.
Okay. For me, there is kind of a libertarian argument that if you own land, I don't really like the state telling me what I have to do with it.
Then do something else with it.
Well, it's what I'm saying is, like, if I own it and I want to do something with it, I should be able to do with it.
But do something with it then. Don't just leave it there. That's how I feel. Like, listen, and I'm not necessarily a hyper left person. I consider myself pretty middle of the road. And I get why anybody would not like the government coming in and tell you what to do with your land, but also at the same time,
Well, I think they're
do
giving you the
something.
option to do it. I don't think they're demanding that you change it. It's that you're giving the option
And
to
that's
do it.
see, and that's
Because they can't
even
tell
more
you
so.
to do something on your land.
Yeah, and therefore you get the option. But if the option is put solar panels there or leave it vacant and do nothing, 99.99% of the time, I'm gonna tell you to put the solar panels there, flat out.
dailydetroit@gmail.com. Thank you for the feedback. I know we won't always agree, but I try my best to respect each other.
And I do appreciate the comments. I do. And I know I took a strong stance on this, but I do appreciate the comments. But I just think that it is very, very difficult for somebody who is not, painfully familiar with the neighborhoods of Detroit to have that kind of take. I would never say something like that about a city I don't live in and never been to.
Listener feedback continues, and this will be the last one before we take our Thanksgiving break for Thursday. And this was one that I thought was interesting to bring up because it has happened a number of times, and this is an interesting one. This past weekend, we met some friends downtown to watch the Lions. We didn't have tickets to the game, but wanted to hang out at the Detroiter and spend the day in the city catching up and watching the game. We all live in the surrounding suburbs and spend tons of time downtown and have for years. We are absolute lovers of Detroit and have been since we moved to the area in 95. The good, the bad. I'm writing because we were once again approached aggressively by a man and his girlfriend who apparently live in Corktown. He loudly and aggressively screamed, "Go home," and clearly had an issue with our group of four. We never spoke to him directly, but he must have assumed we didn't live in the D and just wanted to let us know we weren't welcome. His girlfriend, embarrassed, tried to drag him away. I've experienced this more than a few times, and it's embarrassing to say the least. I'm not interested in having to endure a fist fight outside a bar because I, quote, don't belong. This is an age-old topic, no doubt, and I'm not going to stop spending time downtown because of it. I'm honestly bummed about the incident. We spend good money downtown, respect the city and its residents, and treat everyone with good vibes. Are we welcome? Does this grouchy dude have reason to hate us without even having talked to us? Would love to hear a dialogue on the pod about this, and this is a note from Steven. I have thoughts. Norris, you first.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, that guy's a jerk, and he should not be approaching anybody for any reason and telling them that they belong or don't belong.
I'm gonna guess he's like 12 ticks to sauced.
Yeah, I wholly reject that. Also, let's also take it to consideration if you're out at the bar and he's out at the bar and this guy is clearly, blitzed out of his mind. Let's also put that into consideration.
He needs to not be served.
Yeah, but listen, a drunk mind speaks a sober tongue. But the thing for me is that, there is a lot of animosity in the city. There is a lot of animosity in downtown versus the neighborhoods. But my thing is, if this dude is talking about something, I'm from Corktown, first of all, I would love to know what kind of guy this was. And I'm not just talking about racially, because anybody who's saying they're from Corktown and they are like younger than 65 years old.
I know a couple people from Corktown, but they also have parents there that live there.
But that's what I'm saying. If they're younger than 65 years old, come on, bro. Like,
so this gets into a thing that I'll go there. I'll bring up. They didn't mention race in this. I will bring it up, and I'll speak for my side of things. Us white people love to gatekeep, and there is nothing more annoying, especially as somebody who, like, my porch fell off when I was 5, like over by like Mac and Bewick. Like, I've been around the city a minute, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than like gatekeeping somebody who was like 5 years before you. And I see it online all the time. Like, it's one of the most annoying. I just roll and scroll past it. But you are kind of annoying if you're that person because you're new here too.
You're not kind of annoying. You are annoying. Like, that's the thing. Like, I had a very interesting encounter with a gentleman at Great Lakes Coffee back before it became Red Hook and the strike and all that. But right there on Alexandrine and Woodward. I'm sitting at the bar and I'm just having a chat with a guy who's at the bar, and he's sitting here telling. Because the bartender was new to town. This is their first job in town, and they're asking me, like, hey, what are some neighborhoods I should check out? What are some things I should do? And the guy next to me, this white guy, he's like, yeah, man, I've been here for about 4 years now, man, and, you shouldn't go over there, and you shouldn't go over there. And he's looking at me to, like, validate him, because I guess at the time I looked like, a lot of people tell me I don't look like somebody who's from Detroit, which I don't know what the hell that means. And I don't know how one looks like they're from Detroit or not.
It's a big city, and have you met Detroiters? Because if you've met Detroiters, we don't all look the same.
Exactly. So I'm talking to this dude, and he is just spouting off the craziest stuff about certain neighborhoods. And I just looked at him and I was like, Yeah, bro. I was born here. As a matter of fact, I went to school in that neighborhood, and let me tell you, it's safe. Like, like, what are you talking about? And he was specifically talking about, like, Rosedale and stuff like that, which, again, if anybody who done read a book or two about the city of Detroit for
Look,
the
the
past 20
Bargain Block
years,
Boys are over in Grandmont Rosedale.
that's what I'm
Like,
saying.
There's HGTV crews. Oh, come on,
That's what
man.
I'm saying. You're talking about one of the most stable neighborhoods in the entire city, and you just talking out of your ass because you a little liquored up and you're afraid to go over there because you won't see any extra white folks. So the thing for me, for this I want to say caller, but for this person who wrote in, go wherever you want, and as long as you feel safe, you are welcome. As a matter of fact, go to any bar you desire in the city and just be a normal person, and you'll be good. And I feel really sickened that you had that experience, because Detroiters that I know love to talk about this city. They love to tell you about the city. They love to tell you about the history of the town. They love to tell you about their neighborhood. They love to tell you stories about when they were growing up. Everybody I know loves to do that. But I feel like now, because of the animosity between downtown and the rest of the neighborhoods, that you do have a lot of people who they think everybody down there is just a weekend warrior. You know what I mean? They think everybody down there is just here to have a good time downtown and could care less about the fate of the rest of the city, which also, as Detroiters, though, we got to get used to, because that's tourism. That's just what it is.
Isn't that the kind of the point of a city, though? So, like, a city gets its power from being the hub of everything else around it. If Detroit wasn't that hub, it would have no cachet. It would have no power. It would have no interest. Like, part of the issue with Detroit and representation, all those serious things we talk about, is that, like, people move and leave. And part of the thing about a city is that it needs to be the place that everybody comes together. That's where everybody makes the money. That's where all these deals happen. Like, I think that that's important. And especially, greater downtown is kind of like, it is Detroit's downtown, but it is also, in reality, the rest of the region's downtown. Because if you've been to a lot of these suburbs, they don't have downtowns.
No,
They don't have places like
exactly.
that.
It's the connector for all this stuff. And also, just the way our downtown is structured, it's pretty central to most of the region. I'm really sorry that you had that experience. But the thing I will say to two groups of Detroiters: number one, for people who was born and raised here and been here 30, 40 plus years, there's going to be new people in the city. There's going to be new people in your neighborhood. And guess what? All of them may not look like you. Get used to that. So that's for them. But if you've been here for less than 5 years, I invite you to go to the kitchen and pour yourself a warm cup of STFU. All right? Because what we need to be very cognizant of is that you are not going to learn and know everything about a city in 5 years. You can share your experience, you can share where you live and all that stuff, but there is a level of connection, experience, and all that stuff that you are not going to have because you're new. You got to be in Rome for 5 generations before you could call yourself a Roman. That's how deep it is.
I think I count. I will add this, and I want to share this because it comes up every year, especially around opening day, but I think it's a good metaphor for other things. Treat the city like you would treat your own neighborhood. Like, I remember I was house sitting for somebody, and it was like late opening day. There was just like this dude in a high school coach's jacket just peeing on my door, or throwing up on the streets or whatever. And that's not cool. Like, that to me is like that when I see that, that's where I get frustrated, because I would never do that to you. And Detroiters don't do that.
And unfortunately, what a lot of people from outside the city have to realize is that for many Detroiters, that is their conceptualization of what suburbanites are. Is that they come down for the baseball games, the hockey games, whatever. On opening day, they have a small riot where they fight and get drunk and vomit everywhere. And then they go back to their lovely,
I don't go to opening day anymore.
Yeah, and they go to their lovely, pristine cul-de-sac neighborhoods in Oakland County, and come back next March to do it all again. And I think also you have to be cognizant of that, in the same vein that I am very cognizant of how I may be perceived if I'm just willy-nilly walking around the suburbs. I have to be conscious of that. And so I think what makes it hurt for a lot of people.
You're watched at the store. Straight up, you go to any store in any mall, you're going to be watched.
Yeah, and maybe not as bad as it used to be in years previous, but I'm gonna get a second look. And I think what this reeks of, and not necessarily this person here, but I think this energy behind this is what it is there's a subset of people, particularly white folks, who have never had the feeling of being the one who's watched, never being the one who is looked at twice, never being the one who is looked at skeptically. You know, why are you here? What are your, I can't trust you over there. That's a new experience for a lot of them type of folks. And so it hurts. You know how hurtful that is? And so I say to you, this is a chance for empathy, everybody. Let's just, be a little bit more conscious of what's going on around you. Being a little empathetic, because I'm empathetic to people in the suburbs who have come to the city and maybe they got carjacked, or maybe they got harassed, or maybe they've just had a bad experience in the city. I'm cognizant of that and I'm conscious of that, and I try my best to be a warm and welcoming person. So if everybody just treats everybody with respect, we won't have this issue.
Norris Howard, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. And I want to end on a really positive note about the holidays and about Thanksgiving. This is an opportunity for everybody. If you're coming down to the parade or shopping for Black Friday or any of that kind of stuff, just share a kind word to a stranger. We used to say stuff like that back in the day. Just share a kind word. Say if somebody got a cool jacket on. Hey man, I like that jacket. Oh wow. I really hope you have a nice day. Let's all just be a little bit kinder to each other, especially coming out of the past few years. I think we could get a little bit of that energy back.
And our project I've always wanted to do would be downtown or somewhere like that and set up a parking booth and do it in Campus Martius or something else. And I wanted to label it complimentary parking. And you come up and you get a compliment and a parking pass. Complimentary parking, whatever it is.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. I don't know if the Illiches will let you do it.
The cabal will stop me. Stop me from being nice.
Oh, man.
So good. And by the way, Norris, thank you so much for spending this year with us. I'm looking forward to many more podcasts together.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it as well. And on top of that, letting people know the secret plans that are happening.
Yeah, if you remember, patreon.com/dailydetroit, you know what those secret plans are. We'll share them real soon. We've been working real hard. I want to shout out engineer Randy, who has spent a ton of hours helping me get this together physically. Like all of you have helped, but like he has been like physically like the guy who's been like putting in screws and setting up cables and everything else. He's been with us very much ride or die, and I really appreciate that. So with that, I am Jer Stays.
And I'm Norris Howard.
Thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around town.